Really Truth, as always, is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Make sure you check them out now at betting.net. Steve and Joe couldn't make it this week. Steve hopes to be back by the playoffs. We wish him well. Tonight is myself, Mike Goodpaster, and a man who speaks out of place all the time, like right there, our NFL beat writer, Dan Kornhauser. How you doing, Dan?
I am doing wonderfully, Mike, especially after last week's games. You want me to tell you and the people what happened?
Doesn't really matter because you were late for the show. So
I won 10 games last week. I went 10-6. Mike, you went 6-10.
Oh, well, then you're still not going to win because you're only up by 7.
Let's do it. I'm up by 7 going into week 17. I'm not losing this lead. Let's go me.
All right, we're going to start off with the Dallas Cowboys at the Tennessee Titans. The Cowboys are 11-4, still with a shot to get the NFC East at the Tennessee Titans, who are 7-8. Dallas is favored by 11.5 points, Dan.
I am going to take the Dallas Cowboys in this game. And honestly, if this line were higher, I would still take Dallas. Tennessee is going to be not only without Ryan Tannehill, which of course means the awful Malik Willis is going to be starting at quarterback, but Derrick Henry is now doubtful with a hip injury. This is new. He played in last week's game, and all of a sudden today he's doubtful to play tomorrow. So with that in mind,
I can tell you this. All this is this. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose this game. Just like the Jacksonville game, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. Jacksonville takes ties. So right now, they're resting for the game to play for the division championship the next week. That's all this is. And because of that, I think it's a no-brainer. I will take the Cowboys. Actually, I think that if Tennessee needed to win the game at 11.5 or 9.5, whatever it is, I would jump all over the Titans just because we saw them, Malik Willis, go into Kansas City and lose by 3 points. So they're a well-coached team. You never know what could happen. And the other thing is Dallas is coming off a huge emotional win, perfect letdown game. But once again, the Titans playing for absolutely nothing. The Cowboys still have a little something to play for. I agree with you on that one. But to me, if I'm the Titans or Jaguars, why play anybody right now?
I mean, yeah, all that really matters is a week 18 game between the two of them. The winner wins the division. It's that simple. So, yeah. We'll see what happens, but let's go Dallas.
All right, next up, we've got the Cardinals at the Falcons. This is just an absolutely hideous matchup, but there's got to be some games like that. Not everybody can be 10-4. These are two teams lumping down the stretch. Atlanta's averaged just 14 points per game in a 4-game losing streak. Desmond Ridder, I mean, we could say he's having growing pains, but he's not an NFL quarterback. Similar to Malik Willis, only I do believe he's better than Malik Willis. I mean, this is whatever. It doesn't matter what his name is because we're not going to be saying it a year and a half from now anyway. I mean, we're not. I mean, I've got a better chance of coming off my shoulder surgery, getting a tryout, and being an NFL starting quarterback than Malik Willis. And I do believe that I did predict this guy to you guys at the start of the year. It was a stupid draft pick to pick him at 3 because people love his mobility and way he can run around. The only problem is it takes a lot to be an NFL quarterback, and he's not even close to having that. When I look at this game, both teams are a mess.
Yep.
I'm damn near tempted to take the 3.5. Just got to take the final score, maybe 3-0. But I'm going to take the Falcons because I think the Falcons play harder as a whole. So I'm going to go with Atlanta, Dan.
I'm going to take Atlanta as well, mostly because Arizona has literally nobody relevant playing. James Conner's questionable now at this point with an illness. AJ Green, they already had no Kyler Murray. It's just all downhill for this team.
AJ Green hasn't played in like 4 years in the NFL, right?
Oh no, he's played. He
does nothing. That's what I'm saying. Who gives a shit? He's ass. All right. Next up, we've got the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are one of 5 teams sitting at about 7-8. If they can win out, they've got a decent shot to make the playoffs. They're playing the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears can be a dangerous team, but to me, you take the Lions. You give it a 5.5 points because the Lions are much better at home than they are on the road, which is a sign of a very young football team, Dan.
So you're taking Detroit?
Yeah.
I'm taking Detroit as well, and like you said, they're playing at home, and Jared Goff, not only does Chicago's defense suck, but Jared Goff is a different quarterback at home than he is on the road. I think I mentioned this in last week's show. Coming into last week's game,
Well, I think the entire team is different because I don't think we can blame it on Jared Goff because the defense gave up 320 yards. It's really hard to be a successful quarterback when you're not on the field that much, and when every time you come on the field, your offense or defense just give up a touchdown.
the only question, you're not wrong there, but the only question I have for Detroit is they're probably going to be without Jamal Williams, who leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. He's their goal line back. He's their red zone back. He's going to be out with injuries. So that's going to be interesting to see how they divvy up the backfield touches.
Yeah, but remember this. This is a
Swift
Bears
and,
defense. This is a Bears defense that gave up, 250 yards rushing to the Bills.
Awful. Just awful. Awful in every possible way.
And everybody still questions whether the Bills can run the ball enough to win a Super Bowl. So that'll tell you all you need to know about the Bears. So who are you going with here?
I'm going to take Detroit. It's -5, right? Yeah, -5. So I'm going to take them. Let's do it.
All right. Next up, Jacksonville at Houston. Jacksonville's favored by 4, Dan. And the thing about this game, Jacksonville doesn't have to win it. And Houston has played pretty well the last few weeks.
That includes this past week. It's just, which shocked the hell out of everyone. I think they only won because Henry didn't run for 200 like he usually does.
No, I think they won because Malik Willis is even worse than what the Texans throw out at quarterback.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But I'm going to take Jacksonville here. This is one of those, like the Titans game. You said neither team really cares about this week because all that matters is next week. But you still, if you're Jacksonville, you still want to make a statement. You don't want to just win it because the other team's got no quarterback and running backs hurt and defense is you don't want to win it that way. You want to win it outright. And why not over just a lackluster team in Houston? They play hard, but that doesn't matter. Wins and losses are all that matters. So I'm going to take Jacksonville -4.
All right, next, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, it's just Trevor Lawrence is the difference there. That's about it to me. I mean, he might be a really good quarterback. He might be better than that. Maybe he's just hot right now, but he is hot right now. I'm going to go with the hot hand.
So hot right now.
All right, next up, we've got the Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are giving up 13.5 points. I don't like this because this is not how the Chiefs used to do it, where they blow everybody out. But the Broncos have bottomed out. A new coach, maybe that'll help. The Chiefs have won 14 straight in this. I would say AFC rivalry, but can it really be a rivalry if one team's won 14 straight games? Patrick Mahomes is 10-0 with a 95.4 passer rating against Denver.
Ridiculous.
The Chiefs are 0-3 against the spread this year, though, when favored by more than 10 points. But they weren't playing the Broncos. I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I'm going to give the points, Dan.
You know what? First game we're going to differ on. I'm going to take Denver. Now, normally I would agree with every single word you said, but just the fact that they fired Nathaniel Hackett, maybe this gives this team a little boost of energy. Maybe they lose by 13. They don't lose by 14 plus. I still think they get smacked, but I'll take Denver.
All right, let's go to some games that matter a little bit now. We've got the Miami Dolphins at the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. Both teams with a legitimate shot. I mean, New England's got a legitimate shot. If they win out, they're in. And they didn't look bad against the Bengals last week. You still got Bill Belichick. Mac Jones sucks. But the Miami Dolphins are a mess. But the Dolphins have a lot of weapons here to play the Patriots with. And this is a game where really, if Miami loses this game, they're in trouble to make the playoffs even, Dan.
As of now, as of today, I believe I saw something that they have like a 56% chance of making the postseason, which is down significantly from just even this past week's game. So they're teetering. They're teetering on the edge. What's the line? Miami -1?
It is Miami -1 because the Patriots are 3-4 at home this year. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games. Miami won the first meeting 20-7 in week 1 and has a chance to win 5 in a row in the series.
And back-to-back losses for New England, but Miami, like you said, Miami's lost 4 in a row. Really, really ugly.
And I'll tell you this. I think that Miami playing Teddy Bridgewater is a better team than playing with Tua.
Why?
Because Tua's not any good. I mean, Tua's not an NFL quarterback. I mean, when you look at Tua, this is the thing. If teams defend him, when you watch Tua, if he makes the initial throw right away and he doesn't have to look at the second, third, fourth guy, he's awesome. The way I explain Tua when I watch him play quarterback is this. When you call a play as a head coach or an offensive coordinator, when you call that play into the quarterback, there's some quarterbacks that can take that play and execute that play. There's very few quarterbacks at any level that can take that play and have the ability to see if this goes wrong, this play, I immediately go here, if you know what I mean. They see more than just what's in front of them. To me, a Joe Burrow, a Patrick Mahomes, they see the nuances of the game. Tua Tagovailoa does not see the nuances of the game, plus the fact that he's not durable enough. So no matter how good he is, 2-3 years from now, he's out of the league anyways. But I think Teddy Bridgewater is the better guy to go with here in this game.
I mean, Tua with being in concussion protocol again. What is this? His third in a couple of months?
And it looked like he got the concussion in the second quarter, and they just let him play the rest of the time. Somebody needs to get the Miami Dolphins a doctor, and somebody in the NFL needs to take this seriously at some point.
Yo, Miami's playing some dangerous games, man. You're not only dealing with a player's health, and not only his health as a player, but as a human, his long-term health and ability to live.
Let's face this. They pay these guys a lot of money. They don't really give a shit what their life's like after football. They just use them up, they throw them away, and that's the way it's always been, and it's the way it'll always be. And when it's not like that, it's just because they're catching so much heat that they have to do the right thing.
Yeah, like that lawsuit that they settled because of concussions forever.
The fact there is you get guys like Ricky Dixon, who played for the Bengals Super Bowl team, Super Bowl 23, who had Lou Gehrig's disease, was dying. And even a year after he had died, his wife was still having to fight with the NFL to get some of that money. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, but the NFL is disgusting. I mean, it's disgusting that they put the Broncos and the Rams on Christmas Day. I mean, it's like the Grinch that stole. There's football on. There's football on. I don't have to watch the NBA because nobody watches it anyways. But then I turn it on, and it's the Broncos and the Rams. And it's a slime game, too, which is absolutely stupid. All right, Miami Dolphins, -1 at New England. Who gets this done here? Because the Patriots, to me, Mac Jones is a mess, too. Miami's got more weapons. So, to me, it's kind of an obvious pick.
So, it sounds like you're taking Miami.
You get to pick this one first. We're taking turns. I was pontificating.
I'm going to take New England on this one. If this line were a little different, maybe I go the other way. But I'm gonna take New England.
I'm down 7 games. I'm going to take Miami because actually I think New England probably nips this. But I'm serious. The weapons Miami has makes this very dangerous. I like Bridgewater. I'm going to take the Dolphins. Next up, we got Risley's Colts at the New York Giants. The Giants are only favored by 3 because almost every Giants game is decided by 3 points, Dan. So when we look at this, I mean, I just don't see how this is a 3-point line. I mean, who are they going to play at quarterback this week? Are they down to Johnny Unitas?
So for the Colts, it sounds like they're still going to go with Nick Foles.
Well, then it sounds like I'm going to go with the New York Giants, and I'm going to give the 3 points. And actually, I would do that no matter who played quarterback. But we watched them play the Chargers, and their defense played all right. I mean, they played good enough to win the game. But that offense was absolutely horrendous. And with Nick Foles, you had no ability to throw the ball deep.
And this is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, by the way, Nick Foles.
But that was also like 4 or 5 years ago. Shit changes.
They benched Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan was doing absolutely nothing, but he's better than Nick Foles.
Right? I don't believe Matt Ryan was doing absolutely nothing because the week before I saw him put up like 33 points. I mean, what the hell?
You know what? That's not his fault that they lost that game. I don't know what else you want your quarterback to do when the offense puts up 33 points and your team still loses.
And it was on the road in Minnesota in a game you were a pretty good underdog. I mean, and then you're going to bench the guy that scored 33 and bring in a guy who hadn't played in a couple of years.
The O-line, I mean, this team fell apart real quick. The O-line, which used to be a strength, is a complete joke now. JT is out. They can't run the ball. Michael Pittman's out there, and they can't get him the ball. Now they got Nick Foles. It's just a
And
disaster.
then
The
T.Y.
Jets
Hilton
in the
goes to
air can't
Dallas.
anything
And then
up.
T.Y. Hilton goes to Dallas and makes huge plays right away.
Yeah. Yep. And then
I
T.Y.
mean,
Hilton comes off the street in week 16, and is useful. Who knew?
yeah. Well, I mean, this is what we do know. The issue in Indianapolis is Chris Ballard, the GM. He should have been gone a couple of years ago. He has destroyed this team. He's destroyed this roster. And right now, you're at a point, if you pick between 3 and 5, you're probably not going to get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. Then what the hell are you going to do? You still got no quarterback. I mean, because really, what quarterback you got? I mean, I've heard him talk about Will Levis.
Will Levis, yeah.
I mean, Will Levis is horrible.
If you believe the rumors that are swirling, and in December, I'm more likely to believe rumors like this than I am come like April when these things sound like they're crazy. But in December, it holds a little more weight. I don't like it. I hate it. I think it sounds stupid, but the rumor is that NFL teams like Levis more than they like Young and more than they like Stroud. And the main complaints, it sounds like, are for Stroud that his offense isn't an NFL offense. We've seen, I mean, he's got all the physical talent, but we've seen Ohio State quarterbacks.
Let me say this, though. I think C.J. Stroud is not very good. So,
and then people complain about Bryce Young's height, which he has everything else. Just he's 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that. So they got questions, and then they look at Levis and they say, "Oh, he could be. He's a Josh Allen, a poor man's Josh Allen because he's got a big arm and he can run around and he's a big guy."
But the difference here is this: Josh Allen was a poor man's Josh Allen for the first 2 years in the NFL. His thing is he went to the right team, they developed him correctly, and he turned into a good quarterback. How many organizations are like that? There's not many. So, I mean, the kid from Fresno State, I think his name's Hader. That's a guy I really like. But I think we see the Brock Purdy's of the world. We see, hell, even Andy Dalton's had a hell of a career. He was a second-round pick. The greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen were Tom Brady, a sixth-round pick, and Joe Montana, a third-round pick. So I think people put way too much weight into this because a lot of times these guys are studs in college because they played at a stud program and they had all the best players around them and they played against teams that weren't as good with people. And the C.J. Stroud thing, I was big on C.J. Stroud till I saw Michigan defend him. And the way Michigan defended him, coverage-wise, is the same way an NFL team will defend him. And he still played well, but wasn't as great. Now, I think Stroud, to me, is kind of like a Justin Fields. If he goes to the right place, he'll be fine. But how many places are the right place anymore? If I'm the Indianapolis Colts, and this may seem crazy, if I'm the New York Jets, I'm going after Baker Mayfield. It's a dude that can play, that's been proven. He's been to the playoffs. You don't have to take a risk with him. And a team like the Jets, everything's there to go to the playoffs with, except for a quarterback.
Yep.
And I know you don't like Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield can play football. He got screwed over in Cleveland. He took him 11-5, won a playoff game, and then he got hurt. He gutted it out, didn't play as well. They got rid of him, brought in Deshaun Watson. I'm telling you this, if Baker Mayfield was a Cleveland Brown all year this year, they would probably have made a wild card run. I think they would have won 8 or 9 games. And we see it with what Baker has done with the Rams. You can't take Baker and stick him in a cookie cutter NFL offense. You got to let him play. And most of these teams, they want to bring guys in and they want to do one of two things with them. And with Baker Mayfield, he can do most of them. I think he does have maturity issues, but I also think if the Carolina Panthers would have kept rolling with him, they'd have been fine. But Carolina was a mess. Cleveland was a mess. The Rams are a mess, but he's performing. So I would go with a guy like him over almost anybody I could draft right now because there's nobody that I could draft that I know is going to be that good.
And you know what? Baker is definitely better than anything the Jets have at quarterback right now. It can't get any worse than what it is. And I mean, it's to the point where here in New York on the radio and stuff, the Jets fans call in and these analysts talk about it, and it doesn't even sound like the Jets can get a second-day pick for Zach Wilson. At this point, it sounds like they're going to be stuck with a 5th or 6th rounder for a guy they took second just a couple of years ago. So talk about completely losing out on the 2nd overall pick and getting literally nothing back for it. But yeah, it's this off-season quarterback carousel is going to be crazy because there's legit like 12 teams, 13, 14 teams that need quarterbacks this offseason for different reasons, potentially, depending on what guys retire or whatever. And there's not enough quarterbacks to go around. Someone's going to be stuck either bringing their guy back, like a Dan Jones back to the Giants, or the Jets might be one of those teams that are asked out and ends up bringing back Mike White to start next year. I mean,
I don't think they'll do that.
Really ugly.
Unless Mike White was to have an outstanding finish to the season and take him to the Super Bowl. All right, that's not going to happen. So you like the Giants also in this game?
Yes, sir. I'll take the Giants over the Colts.
All right, next up, Dan, we've got the New Orleans Saints still in the middle of the playoff hunt against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, my guess is this. Jalen Hurts isn't playing this week, is he?
Jalen, okay, see, I'm going to say no because I don't think he's going to play. There's no reason for it at all.
No.
At this point, all you care about if you're Philly is...
Well, they do have to win one more game or have the Cowboys lose one, don't they?
Yeah, if they want that 1 seed locked up, but give him another week. You don't need him to beat the Saints, I don't think.
And Gardner Minshew is another guy if I'm the Jets. I wouldn't mind Dan.
Yeah, I'll take a swing at Gardner Minshew if I'm the Jets. Hell yeah, absolutely.
When I talk well of Gardner Minshew, like early in the year, you trashed me. I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, because you were saying that you would start him over Hurts, I think.
And I still would.
I wasn't on that train.
I still would.
But no, I think Hurts with his right shoulder, I don't think he plays this week. Lane Johnson's out. Avonte Maddox, their slot corners probably out. And Miles Sanders didn't practice with a knee injury. So they've got their fair share of injuries, but I still think they win this game. Alvin Kamara for the Saints didn't practice on Wednesday. He's got quad issues and whatnot, but I expect him to play in this one. But regardless, I'm going to take Philadelphia. I don't care that it's what's the line? Minus 6.5.
Right now it's 8.5. You want to go because that makes more sense, probably.
I like the 6.5 you got there. So I'm gonna take Philly at 6.5.
Yeah, but we're gonna make the line 8.5 because I'm trying to update these as we go because we've had hell, we had one difference tonight. I forget which game it was, but I mean the line this morning was like 6 and it was like 11 tonight. It might have been the Cowboys game.
The Cowboys, yeah. All right. So what are you changing it to? Philly -8?
Yeah, because I'm trying to look at them as I go through it.
All right.
If you want to check aside every once in a while, I'd like to be as accurate as possible. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. I'm going to do this. The Saints have to win the game. Alvin Kamara, I think, will be able to run the ball a little bit. Andy Dalton's all right. And I'm down by 7 games. So I'm going to go with the Saints and take the 8.5.
All right. I'll take Philadelphia. And I'll take the Philly -8. Let's do it. Gardner Minshew, baby.
The next, don't say that because you ripped me and said I only like white, mediocre quarterbacks for it. All right, next up, we've got the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs still have a 1-game lead in the NFC South, but they're clinging to that lead. Tom Brady has thrown 2 interceptions each of the last 3 weeks, and the Panthers beat the Bucs 21-3 in Week 7. The Panthers in that game rushed for 173 yards. They're coming off a 320-yard outburst against the Lions. The Buccaneers are 1-4 straight up in their last 5 games when favored by 3 or less. Will Brady buck that trend, Dan?
So we're taking it Bucs -3?
Yeah. Do you see anything different? Because I've checked like 3 sites. They're all 3, 3.5.
Yeah, I was going to say 3, 3.5 are the all the options pretty much. So if we're taking Bucs -3, I'm going to take Carolina. I'm going to take Carolina in this one. This feels like a complete letdown situation for Tampa Bay. They're going to back into the playoffs. They don't deserve it.
If they lose this game, they're probably not going to get in. Because you've got the Bucs and the Saints there. If either one of them wins out, they can catch the Bucs and pass them. Yeah, I mean, right now, if Carolina, I think the way this goes, if Carolina wins out right now, they win the next 2 games, they're in the playoffs.
Gross.
Because they would take it because if they end up in a 2-way tie with Tampa Bay, they'll have beaten the Bucs twice if they beat them in this game.
I'm going to take Carolina. I'm going to do it.
Okay. I agree with you, but I'm going to take the Bucs for show purposes.
All right. So you're taking the Bucs. All right. Here we go. So
right.
We differ on 4 so far.
Well, this is the thing. We differ on 4, but on all 4, I was probably like 50-50. So I just went the opposite.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. What always is this time of year, because some people have a lot to play for, some don't. the Cleveland Browns at the Washington Commanders. Now, everything I see here is Commanders -2.5, which seems like a really small line, but then you got to remember Carson Wentz is coming back to play, Dan.
Yeah, between 2 and 2.5. Looks like 2.5 is the more prevalent one. So we're going Washington -2.5. I want to take Washington, but damn it, this team plays so differently with Carson Wentz. Even if they have the lead, I feel like they could just lose it because they're so lifeless when he plays. I'm gonna take Cleveland on this one, even though I think Washington should win. I'm gonna take Cleveland.
All right, this is getting interesting because I'm taking Washington. This would actually be my lock of the week because I think this. I mean, the Browns have been consistent since Deshaun Watson's been there, and that consistent is they've averaged 15 points per game. The Commanders do allow an average of 145.5 rushing yards, which worries me a little bit. But after last week and watch Cleveland play against New Orleans, I'm going to go Washington. Washington, if they win, they're probably going to make the playoffs. I mean, there's nothing here to play for Cleveland. So that's all I got to say about that. Next up, we've got the San Francisco 49ers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Check this one real quick, Dan, because I would think with Derek Carr not playing, this point spread would be more than 6 points.
No.
Really?
I'm seeing anywhere from 5 to 6. One spot has it at 10.
I don't think we can go with 10, though, since one spot or most spots have it at 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the 49ers, and I'm going to give to 6 because the Raiders probably won't be able to score. So the only the Niners got to do is put up 3 or 7 points, and they're good. So I'm going to take the Niners.
So San Francisco -6. I'm going to take San Francisco as well. Let the Purdy train keep chugging along. He's my new favorite quarterback.
See, the thing that makes me mad is this. They do this crap with Derek Carr, and next week, if the Bengals beat the Bills this week, they could be the number 1 seed if the Chiefs were to lose a game. But if Derek Carr is not there, that won't happen. And Derek Carr has played well, and he's upset the Chiefs before. Damn near did it earlier this year. So I think that sucks that they're doing that.
And Purdy came from, I want to say, Arizona State.
No, try again.
Purdy?
Yeah. Brock Purdy didn't come from Arizona State. What the hell is wrong with you? I thought you were a Brock Purdy fan now.
I thought he did.
Did you?
I thought. Iowa State? Oh, it was a red team, Iowa State.
Actually, they're maroon and gold.
Same thing. But yeah, no, I'll take San Francisco. Let's do it.
All right. Let's do it. I agree. Next up, the New York Jets at the Seattle Seahawks. Who would have thought at the start of the year this would have huge playoff implications? And the game still sucks to me. But both teams still in the middle of the wild card hunt. The Jets have lost 4 in a row. Mike White is back. And I'll tell you, the fact that people get excited that Mike White is back will tell you how bad Zach Wilson is. Seattle has lost 3 in a row. They're just 3-4 at home. This is a pick'em game, Dan.
So I'm going to take the Jets, period. Flat out. Mike White magic, even though the Jets have lost 4 in a row.
All right. I am going to take Seattle because it's a pick'em and it's a 50-50 game to me. And what the hell? Because I'm pretty sure the way this is going to turn out, I'll be up 4 games by the time we get to next week. All right. Next up, we've got the Minnesota Vikings at the suddenly resurgent Green Bay Packers, who beat the Miami Dolphins 26-20 last week. They won a few in a row. Aaron Rodgers is on a little bit of a hot streak. Dan, what do you think?
So we're going with Green Bay -3. Looks pretty consistent.
Everything I see is 3 so far.
3, I think there's one.
I see a 3.5, and I see a 2.5.
Nah. So 3. All right, Green Bay -3. Minnesota visiting Green Bay. Why not, man? Let's keep the hot streak going. I'm gonna ride Aaron. You done messed up, Aaron. It took you all season to get your act together, but you're finally here. And I still don't trust Minnesota. Their defense sucks. Defense is just awful. They allowed the Colts to score 33 the other week. Just bad all around. So I'm going to take Green Bay.
Hey, here you go. Bruce Reimers Former Cincinnati Bengals, Super Bowl 23, says Iowa State. You know why Bruce Reimers chimes in and says that, Dan?
Is it because he went to Iowa State?
Yes, Bruce Reimers. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure on this, though, but I'm pretty sure Bruce was an Iowa State Cyclone back in the early 80s. But if Bruce is still watching, I'm sure he will tell us. But thanks for watching, Bruce.
He did.
All right. I'm going to do this. I think the Minnesota Vikings win this game. I think it's absolutely crap that the Packers are even considered. I mean, what did the Packers do? They beat a Miami team that threw 3 picks. That if Miami would have just ran the ball the entire second half, they would have won the game. I don't buy this. What is this, Bruce? Bruce says, hell yes. I was pretty sure there. Hey, Bruce, real quick, I got a question. We need to have you on our Bengals Weekly show either this week or next week if you're interested. So let me know on that. But I'm going to go with the Vikings because I think it is an absolute joke the way people rip on Kirk Cousins. I mean, everybody always said that he couldn't win big games, and now he just plays out of his ass in every fourth quarter. He figures out how to win the game. You just said his defense is horrible, but yet his team still has a shot to be the number 1 seed.
Which is mind-blowing. I can't wait for this luck to run out, though.
But see, this is the thing. Is it luck running out, or will they just get beat when they're supposed to get beat? I mean, if they lose in the NFC Championship game, that's not the luck running out. They were pretty damn good to do that.
Yeah, that's fair, but let's be honest, man. When your defense is 31st overall and 31st against the pass, you're not going to go far. And it's not.
Would you like to give Kirk Cousins some credit? You've ripped Kirk Cousins for the last couple of years on this show. Kirk Cousins right now is playing like a top 5 quarterback.
I wouldn't say top 5, but he's definitely playing like.
Why wouldn't you say that? So you don't think a guy who leads multiple comebacks more than anybody else has this year, who has a very good passer rating, has the best passer rating in the NFL if you're just including second halves when it matters, which has always been the rip on him, is not in the top 5. I mean, Kirk Cousins is better than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has had one season where he did something. And let's face it, when people talk about how good the NFC East is, the NFC East is not that good. The fact of the matter is, all those teams are average. Philadelphia and Dallas are slightly above average. That's it.
I mean, you want to say that, but Washington, the 4th place team, would be the best team in the South. They would be the 2nd best team in the North.
You're kind of really giving me some credence here because those are the rest of their schedule pretty much, Dan. They're playing NFC teams. You just said the NFC sucks. So if everybody sucks and you're the one team that's won 13 games, are you really that good? My point is we don't know. And also, I'd tell you this. If I gave you $500 right now and said the Eagles are playing the Chiefs, the Bengals, or the Bills, all 3 times you go lay that money down and you'd bet on the AFC team.
I'd do the same thing if it were the Vikings.
Yeah, but the point is you'd do the damn same thing if it was any NFC team.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely, because it's those 3 teams and everybody else. And to think otherwise would be foolish, mostly because I am higher on Jalen Hurts than you are. I know it's only the regular season, but mostly because I don't trust Jalen Hurts come playoff time. But I still don't trust Cousins come playoff time. And they've won a bunch of these games. I think they've won 5 games.
Kirk Cousins has won playoff games, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next up, let's just go to the next game because you're making a fool out of yourself. Next up, the Rams at the Chargers. Hey, for Steve Risley, you're a dumbass, Dan. But the Los Angeles, the Battle of SoFi Stadium, we've got the Rams at the Chargers. Chargers favored by 7, Dan. We've got a Charger team who's in the playoffs. So they're not playing for a whole hell of a lot against a Rams team who just isn't very good, but they've been lucky because they played 2 bad teams last week.
I'm going to take the Rams here. I don't think they win, but like you just said, the Chargers aren't playing for anything, and they're in. Period. They're not winning their division, so why go crazy? I think they take their foot off the pedal. Maybe they still win, but Baker on the Rams looks like a rejuvenated Baker. I'm going to take the Rams despite the fact that the Rams are playing with their B squad.
All right. I'm going to take the Chargers -7. I've seen a 6 and I've seen an 8, but I'm going to take the Chargers -7. I think this. I think the Rams did beat a very bad Broncos team. But the thing that I have an issue with the Chargers is I just don't think they're very good. I mean, they should be, but they're not. And to me, that all falls at the feet of the head coach. I mean,
Yep.
last week, Justin Herbert was ordinary. To me, he's more ordinary than he's extraordinary. When I see him play, if you go through each game, there's a lot more games where he just looks like an average dude than he looks like a stud, Dan. You know I'm right, Dan.
His numbers weren't pretty last week. No. But I have not lost faith in Justin Herbert.
I've never had any faith in him, so
I know. But
at least
the
he cut his
stats
damn hair. So
stats aren't pretty. 21 touchdowns, 10 picks thus far this season. You would like that to be closer to 30 because that means he's putting up those stats, which means his team's probably scoring more points, which means his team's probably winning more games. But here we are. Wildly mediocre. 77 completion percentage. Ooh, awesome. No touchdowns.
hey, Steve Risley say, I feel the Chargers play anyone other than Nicole stay loose. It's lose with just one. Oh, Steve, you dumbass. There we go. It's the first time I got to say it to Steve in a month since he hadn't been on the show.
And I will say over the last 3 weeks for him, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, been sacked 11 times.
Hey, how's that, though? We've had 2 famous people chime in tonight.
I know.
We had Bruce Reimers, who started in the Super Bowl for the Bengals. We had Steve Risley, who scored 5 points in the 1981 National Championship game against North Carolina.
You just had to throw that last stat in. You couldn't say just national championship winner, Indiana Hoosier legend.
Well, he scored points, so that counts. He scored the last point of the game. He made a free throw. I would like that he missed the one right before he made, but go ahead.
Just terrible. Steve, you're my favorite player.
Hey,
okay.
Real quick, though, I want to tell everybody to head over now and see for yourself. Betting.net makes it easy to find all the legal online casinos or sports books in your state. Make sure you check them out at betting.net. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry about
that. I forgot my train of thought. Totally threw me off, but let's go Rams.
All right, next up, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still a legitimate shot to make the playoffs. Where'd Dan go? At the Baltimore Ravens.
My camera went crazy.
Baltimore Ravens are favored by 3.5 points, Dan.
Hold on. Give me a second. We'll figure this out. I don't know what just happened. I don't know why my camera's going crazy. It won't sit still. Okay. So what is it? Baltimore minus 3.5?
Yeah. And this is a huge game because if Baltimore was to lose this game and the Bengals win on Monday night, Baltimore can no longer win the AFC North. And the Steelers, with a win, if they win their last 2, they have probably a 40 or 50% chance to get in.
And there's a possibility that Lamar Jackson comes back for this game.
Yeah. Because that really won't change the offense, though. So, I mean, the offense looks the same as when Lamar was there.
No, you're not wrong. I'm going to take all right, yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh. Screw it. I think Baltimore wins by 3, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh if we're going minus 3.5.
All right, I'm going to go Baltimore. I mean, there's so many 50-50 games here. I think we've got like 10 differences right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we got at least 8 or 9 differences.
5, 6, 7. I think we got 9, actually. Hold on.
That's what I said, 8 or 9.
So I got Denver. You got KC.
I got 9 also. You're fine. Next up, we have what they're calling the biggest Monday Night Football game in the history of Monday Night Football. These 2 teams combined have the most wins of any 2 teams to play on Monday Night Football since 1997. And I think that the 1997 game and this game were the most with combined wins of 23. You got both teams with a shot to be the number 1 seed. You got Josh Allen versus Joe Burrow. Ticket prices in Cincinnati right now, Dan, are as high as $7,500 a piece.
$7,500?
Yes. The Bills are favored by 1.5 points, which is absolutely astounding to me. But I'll pick this one first. The Bengals will win this game. The Bengals are the better team. There. That's all I got to say. Go ahead, Dan. Pick the Bills, bitch. You know what team's better. You just want to give me a game or what?
I want to take Buffalo so bad.
But the Bengals are better.
If it were in Buffalo, I'd go Buffalo. But I'm going to take Cincinnati at home. And I mean, I said this a few weeks ago, but I'm going to say it again because I need to, because they deserve it. This is the Bengals team that everyone expected, that you expected, that I expected to see all year. Just show up and do special things. I wish their defense in the second half and their offense in the second half against the Patriots showed up, because they went up what, 22-0? Was it
22-0? They were still moving the ball, but I mean, to me, that was a byproduct of Bill Belichick. Here we go. Kenny Reardon says, "Who day?" Kenny Reardon Kenny's a badass, by the way. He would whip your ass probably in a fight or a wrestling match.
Was he a fighter or a wrestler?
Oh no, he's an EMT.
Well, thank you.
So that's the good thing. Once he kicks your ass, he can patch you back up and take you to the hospital.
That's perfect. That's a win.
All right, so Bengals-Bills now. When we look at this game, Leo Collins not being there is going to be huge. Hakeem Adeniji is going to play for him. I think Sam Hubbard, right now, they say he's day-to-day, which the good thing about that means he's probably going to be there next week. But this is the thing. Even if Bengals win this game, if the Ravens beat the Steelers, my worry is your letdown game is that Ravens game for the AFC North Championship. And if you were to lose that, all of a sudden you're the 5 seed. But the good thing there is you're playing Jacksonville or Tennessee in the first round. But then you've got to go to Buffalo if Buffalo's the 1 seed. So there's a lot of things that ride on this. The Bills right now are the 1 seed. A Bengal win sets them up if they win out to be a 2 seed, which I think is huge because you get Buffalo at home again. And then you play Kansas City at the end. Who are you whispering to? Are you talking to yourself again?
No, my cat's down here.
Dude, you've got a cat?
Yeah. I got a little tortellini.
Do you have a dog?
We used to have a couple of dogs. I believe.
See, that's kind of what the problem with today's society is. The feminization of men. I mean, you're sitting there. Do you live by yourself?
No.
Who do you live with?
My mom.
Oh my God, you actually live with your mom. We've joked about that for 2 years, and me and Steve never knew you actually lived with
Mom, the meatloaf. We want it now.
So you live with your mom, and your pet is a cat named...
I call her Boop. Because she's tiny. And
do you ever wonder why you're not married? Because if you do, I can explain it to you right now, just probably in a short 30 seconds.
Hey, listen, all the women I've dated like cats. All of them. Every single one.
Both of them?
All one of them, yes.
What jersey are you wearing right now, Dan?
My Matt Leinart, baby.
This is a bad day for you, Dan.
Matt Leinart.
This is the thing, though, Dan. The good thing is, if you don't have a lot of friends and you're holed up in your mom's basement, you can go sign up with stake.us and use our exclusive promo code of TGT Social, capital letters, to secure your unique 5% rakeback bonus. The great thing about social casinos, Dan, is, all the guys you went to in college, maybe Bob, your friend, moved to LA, and you can actually get on there, play social casino with him, and not feel like such a loser living in your mom's basement with your kitty cat.
Actually, fun story. I was doing the draft show with Sam Teets a few weeks ago, and my kitty was coming around, messing with shit, almost knocking my beer over. And then she ended up jumping up on my lap, jumped on my shoulder, and sat right here like a little bird. It was adorable. She was purring. It was cute. I didn't know what was happening because her claws dug into me randomly, but it was fine. It was a wonderful part of the show. At the end of the show, it was great.
Have you ever thought about doing like a soccer show with your significant other, Dan or Bob?
I would, but my bottom bitch doesn't like soccer.
Is the bottom bitch Bob or is it your cat?
Bob's definitely the bottom bitch, 100%. My day one. Love you, boo. No homo.
The fact that you say no homo means it's homo. But remember to check out stake.us with the promo code TGT Social to get the unique 5% rakeback bonus. Best social casinos out there. But Dan, right now, who's the MVP in the NFL?
Right now, the MVP is Mahomes. However, that can change this week. If Burrow comes out, they beat the Bills, Burrow shows out, and they get neck and neck with Kansas City. Because right now, even though Mahomes is superior in every single statistic relevant, he is.
Really?
He is. He is.
Who won when they played?
Oh, Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow keeps beating Mahomes.
But that's not relevant, right? It's not relevant at all.
At least in statistics, no.
Wait,
but,
wait a second though, because we're talking about being a quarterback. Statistics do not matter. Statistics are for losers. I grew up with that saying in the 70s and 80s. Statistics are for losers. I know, because if this was the 70s and the 80s, there would only be men and women, and they would know what they were. And, we wouldn't let people cross the border. We wouldn't do all this crap that we do now, because this is basically a stupid ass society. So that's what you get. And you get a bunch of people like you that want to play fantasy football and think stats matter.
You see, Mike, here's the problem. The reason
wins and losses matter.
See, because you are used to football from the 70s and the 80s, you're used to the good quarterbacks throwing 30 interceptions a season and them being Hall of Famers, despite throwing 30 interceptions.
Such as season. Who?
I mean, Frank Tarkenton. Bradshaw threw more picks than he did touchdowns a couple of years, if I remember.
This is the thing, though. The thing about Bradshaw is that because it took him 3 or 4 years to even become the starter, because he really started out rough, because it was much harder to play in the NFL back then.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't harder.
You realize Fran Tarkenton still owns like a fair amount of records in the NFL record book, right?
And that's fine.
That's 47,000 passing yards, 342 touchdowns. How many interceptions did he throw, Dan?
Who?
Fran Tarkenton.
I don't know off the top of my head.
If you had to guess how many interceptions he threw in all the years he played, what would you guess?
200.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's your point? I mean, do you realize that the NFL was different? So wait a second. If I'm throwing 75% of my passes 20 yards or farther downfield, Dan, I'm going to throw more interceptions. There aren't a lot of deep balls thrown today. Correct? Patrick Mahomes throws how many deep balls down the field more than 25 yards? How many times he do that during a game? Maybe 5 times.
I mean, again, you're from an era where the good quarterbacks were throwing 20 interceptions a year.
This is bull.
For you, stats don't matter. So for you, stats don't matter.
You have no idea. I do. Tarkenton, do you know what the rules were for a DB against a wide receiver in 1970?
They could do whatever they wanted to the receiver.
No, see, that's number one. It's wrong because you don't know. You're just repeating what other people say. Until the ball was in the air, you could do whatever you wanted to the receiver. That does change the way the game has to be played. And I'm sorry, Dan, you can't throw 3-yard passes and hitches because the dude will just come up and grab you and hold you, and it won't be a penalty. Also, offensive linemen until 1976, 77 had to block like this. If you put your arms out, it was considered holding immediately. So don't give me this shit. They threw 20. I guarantee you this. If you put Fran Tarkenton today, he wouldn't throw 30 interceptions because football is a lot different. If Fran Tarkenton played till he was 40 anyways, he probably played till he's 55 today. So don't give me this shit. And you grew up. Yeah, I grew up when men were men and they played football and people were bitches like you with kitty cats living in their mom's basement when you're 37 years old. Dumb
35. But yeah, that's about the point.
Well, I mean, I can repeat this 2 years from now.
You'll see these old ass games and these old stats, and now stats matter. Stats separate the upper echelon hoes from the not quite rights.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They don't.
Yes, they do.
Who's the greatest quarterback that ever lived? Who's the greatest quarterback that ever lived? Hey, Tubby, can you answer the question?
What?
Who's the greatest quarterback that ever lived?
You're going to say someone different, but the GOAT is Tom Brady.
Yeah, no doubt. But statistically, is he?
In terms of raw numbers?
No, I mean, just in terms of the freaking numbers. Actually, in terms of raw numbers, it'd probably be Dan Marino and Peyton Manning.
If you're a quarterback perfectionist, sure.
No, because a quarterback perfectionist would never choose a guy that's a failure like those two.
But those are two of the best pure quarterbacks of all
They're
time.
not.
Marino's one of the best passers of all time.
He's not. I mean,
That's
how
what
can you
Obed
say that
said.
somebody is a great quarterback if they could never win a Super Bowl?
Well, because
Give me your excuse for that. He went to one Super Bowl.
He did.
Why
That
didn't he
just
go
shows
back?
you how difficult it is.
Really? That's what shows me how difficult it is?
Yeah. That's why a guy like Mahomes, even though he's only got one chip going to two, that's impressive because he's only been a starter for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is.
And he's got one, and Aaron Rodgers said the same thing, and a decade later, he still has nothing else.
How many Super Bowls has Rodgers been to?
One. Well,
one.
Really? You don't count the one he lost?
No, I don't count that at all.
You shouldn't, because he didn't play in another one, you dumbass.
That's what I'm saying.
But you didn't know that, did you?
Huh?
You didn't know that, did you?
I did.
Okay.
That's why I asked. Who was playing a one?
But this is the thing. If you compare just numbers, Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady, right?
When Peyton Manning retired, yes, he was better than Tom Brady.
Was he?
He was.
Was he?
On raw numbers?
Why is no, raw numbers? This is the thing. We could sit there. Pete Rose had 4,192 hits. Does it make him the greatest hitter of all time? No, because his batting average lifetime was 303. He played 6 years longer than everybody else. So those stats don't matter. They're at the end. I mean, he batted 216 these last 3 years, but he got like 80 hits each year, and he got his 4,192. But my point is this. The reason you call Tom Brady the greatest of all time is the 7 Super Bowls. It's not because of any other record. It's not because of any other thing he did. The reason you consider him the greatest, the reason everybody considers him the greatest, is because he won the most Super Bowls. So that will tell me this. You can have all the passing yards you want. You can have all the touchdowns, all the low interceptions you want. But in the end, the only thing that you really get judged on is how many championships you win. When you look in the NBA, when people talk about the greatest basketball player of all time, they bring up Jordan won 6 titles. Bill Russell won 11 titles. You know, that's how
so
this is.
Nobody's saying Bill Russell is the best player of all time.
Why? Yeah, I've seen people say that. I
mean,
it's
old heads who are stuck in their past and don't want to
see. This is something, dude. You need to stop because you're absolutely stupid. I mean, Bill Russell. Bill Russell averaged 30 rebounds, or had 30 points and 30 rebounds in a game 7. And now you're going to say, because you're a dumbass.
Listen, you said Tony Parker was better than Chris
Paul. Real quick, Dan, who else quarterback in the Hall of Fame that no Super Bowl wins or NFL championship won? Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts never even went to a Super Bowl, Steve. And there's a few guys that never went to a Super Bowl.
Warren Moon?
Warren Moon never went to a Super Bowl.
Sonny Jurgensen?
Marino is in on stats. Yeah, he is, and he shouldn't be. But that's not what we're talking about. Because, I mean, Marino's in because actually Dan Marino from 1984 to probably 1988 was the greatest pure quarterback that ever lived. The problem with Marino is after 88, 89, he slowly started to decline and he started to get hurt. You know, he took an injury about 1993, 94, where he missed 3 or 4 games. He took an injury, I think, in 97 or 98. So it's just Dan Marino, for his first 5 or 6 years, was as good as anybody ever saw. But the problem is this. People forget, they say he had no running game. How could he go to another Super Bowl? In 1985, they played the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. They were favored by 8. They had beaten the Patriots twice. Marino throws 3 picks. He loses. 1992, they're favored by 3.5 points to beat the Buffalo Bills. They'd won the division. They'd beaten the Bills twice. Dan Marino throws 3 interceptions, loses 29-10. Those are 2 home playoff losses where they were favorites against teams they had beaten twice during the regular season. That is my biggest knock against Marino, because I believe this. I believe you can be a great quarterback, never make it to a Super Bowl, and get in the Hall of Fame. But it's really hard to do. I mean, if you're on an absolute crap team, you know, I can see why you didn't go to a Super Bowl. But the other thing I know is this. Hall of Fame quarterbacks, no matter what team they're on, will figure out a way to at least get to a Super Bowl. That's my issue. Dan Fouch is not a Hall of Famer if Kenny Anderson isn't. And my thing is this: in the real world, where you take on the greatest players that ever lived, I
Mhm.
know Kenny Anderson's not a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer for the way the Hall of Fame is now. But the Hall of Fame should be
That-
just for the elite players that ever lived. There should be maybe 10 or 12 quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, and that's it. But there's a lot more than that.
And
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 it's sad.
and
And they do
why?
that in every sport. Huh?
And why? Why is that the case? Because it's
Because
not because the NFL is not basketball. Basketball, you could have one player like a LeBron James, for example, carry the team to a championship, and that's great. You got one main guy. That's awesome. You could have a team with two really good players and then a good team, or
well,
role
let's face
players
it, in
around them.
basketball, one guy is 25% of the team. And
In the
you
NFL,
look at Indiana State and Larry Bird.
in the NFL, it is the ultimate team game. You're a coach. You know more. You've coached more football than I've probably been alive for. Okay, so you know this better than I do. But football is the ultimate team sport. So you can have an elite quarterback, a Hall of Famer like Dan Marino, like Jim Kelly, who made it to 4 Super Bowls and couldn't win one. You could have these upper echelon guys not win a chip. It's not their fault. Like, unless the guy's going out there and, just shitting the bed in the Super Bowl or whatever, then it's his fault they lost.
Wait
But
a
if the
second.
guy's
Hold
going out
on.
there,
Fouts was part of Eric Coryell, which changed the passing game. If that's true, Dan, Steve, why wouldn't Don Coryell be in the Hall of Fame? I don't think he is yet, is he? My other thing is this: that had nothing to do with changing it, because if you want to use Eric Coryell, you have to go back to Sid Gilman. Sid Gilman is the one that taught it to Don Coryell. And also, Don Coryell took it to the Cardinals 1974 through 1977, took them to the playoffs twice with Jim Hart at quarterback. So really, Dan Fouts didn't do shit. Jim Hart was the quarterback of that offense before anybody else, and Sid Gilman's the one that developed it and gave it to Coryell.
but as far as back to the
And
conversation,
damn it, Steve, just call and get in on the show next time. I always forget to look at the chat messages. I just noticed I missed a couple of those. Go ahead.
but yeah, no, when it comes to the quarterbacks, the stats matter. Because if it was literally just about Super Bowls, then Terry Bradshaw would be the second best quarterback of all time.
And he should be in the top 5 or 6.
But
because this is the thing
he's
about
not
Bradshaw.
for a
When you
lot of
look at
people.
Bradshaw's numbers after 1975, his last 6-7 years, he's pretty damn good. And the other thing is this: we talked on the phone today. My guys that I would want to be my quarterback in a 2-minute situation to win a Super Bowl. He's one of those guys. It would be Joe Montana. It'd be John Elway. It'd be Tom Brady. It'd be Terry Bradshaw. So don't tell me that he's overrated, because he's not. Because
He's not overrated.
He is the only man. He is underrated as hell.
He is.
Because he is the only man to win 4 Super Bowls. Didn't lose any of them. In all 4 of those Super Bowls, he threw a touchdown pass that basically won them the game in the 4th quarter of all 4 games. And he did it against the Purple People Eaters. He did it against the Doomsday defense twice. And the 4th time was against a great Rams defense with Jack Youngblood, Nolan Cromwell, Jim Youngblood. Who was the linebacker? Isaiah Robertson. I mean, he did it against 4 all-time legendary defenses. So this is the thing. You can sit there and talk about archaic football in the 70s and 80s, but it was when it was actually football. I mean, if you hit a man hard, today, if you watch somebody get smacked really hard, you assume there's going to be a penalty flag, whether it hit him in the head or not, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you grew up with that. I didn't. I grew up with, you could maim a dude. Turkey Jones could slam you on your head. And if you're Terry Bradshaw, nobody cares. Hold on.
Nah, hold on. I am a little older than I
Actually, hold on. Eric Coryell was actually 1974 through 77 was the first time that was ever used with the Cardiac Cardinals. But go ahead.
But no, like for me, I grew up with when it was still a hard-nosed football league. These changes only happened in the last decade, but I still remember. I remember Sean Taylor laying guys out. I remember Ray Lewis laying guys out.
But not laying quarterbacks out, because quarterbacks were pretty much off limits from early 90s on.
Not like
Yeah,
today.
oh, bullshit. In the
Not like
grass.
today.
In the 1980s, even, in the grass was basically, if you touched the quarterback, it looked like you were going to get him, they'd call it in the grass. It would drive you nuts. You need to watch a game from the 80s because
Well,
it
no.
was the worst penalty ever. You
Well-
saw so many games that were lost because the dude is grabbing the quarterback. The quarterback's obviously getting away, and it's already been blown dead because they said he was in the sack. So really, since 1978, the rules each year have gotten softer and softer. And I'm all right with that. I don't think a guy should be able to hit a guy in the head. But I also think this, if it's 4th and 5, you're at a game and there's a ball thrown over the middle, and that dude's jumping up to catch the ball, and he's at 6 yards. And you got to stop him from catching it. If the only way to hit it is to hit him in the head and get the ball loose, I don't think that should be a penalty.
What about
Because
that?
this is at that point, your only concern is I'm not thinking I'm going to hit him in the head. I'm thinking I got to knock the ball loose.
Yeah, but that's when it gets dangerous because then you think about the Vontae's perfect hit on Antonio Brown.
Oh, that was a legal hit. It never should have been penalized.
I don't know.
He pulled up. He turned it aside. I don't want to hear your bullshit because you also had Ryan Shazier in the same game took off Gio Bernard's head. It was never called. Also, right before the Vontae's perfect hit, or right after, you had Joey Porter come on the field, who was a coach. That's an automatic 15-yard penalty they never called. So I don't even want to hear that shit. That game was a complete fucking setup by the NFL anyways. They had they were never going to let the Cincinnati Bengals win that football game against the mighty Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you look at the teams that more often than not get the calls, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. The only time the Cowboys don't get the calls when they play the Green Bay Packers. And you know this because the Calvin Johnson play in 2013 against Dallas. Y'all got screwed. That's because they didn't want Detroit going to Green Bay. They took Dallas's happy ass to Green Bay, and then they screwed Dallas over.
I was gonna say the Dez catch, was that against Green Bay?
Yeah, that's the perfect example of those. That is a golden team, but not if they play the Packers. So if you play the Packers and you're the Cowboys, you're probably going to get screwed. Anybody else, you get screwed against the Cowboys. I mean, in Super Bowl 40, was there ever a bigger fixed game than Super Bowl 40? I mean, Pittsburgh-Seattle was absolutely, if you go back and watch that game, you can find like 10 plays that all went against Seattle, that all had some positive, huge impact on the game. So we're not going to argue about this old young shit anymore.
Fine. But you know what? Let's go back to the original question of who's the MVP. It's Patrick Mahomes, and here's why. First in touchdowns, first in yards, first in total touchdowns, first in total yards, second in QB rating, first in QBR, third in yards per attempt. I mean, the list goes on and on. Burrow is behind Mahomes in every single stat.
Wait a second, because you're a moron once again if you don't realize he had an appendectomy right before the season and probably shouldn't have been playing until week 4. I know it doesn't matter, but Patrick Mahomes wouldn't do that because he's a bitch. Just like the Chiefs are a bitch and the Bills are bitches. And the Bengals will always make those two teams their bitches, which they will do on Monday night.
Let's go Buffalo. Even though I picked the Bengals.
Dumbass.
I know I did. I know I did.
And you want to have another week where you win 10. So
exactly. Can you blame me?
No. Look at this. Risley is making more comments when he's not on the show than he makes when he's in the show.
Miss you, Steve.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to put this up where helicopters flying over your house. I don't know, you freaking moron. Let's see. You dumbass, Risley.
You dumbass.
Jeez. All right. Right now, I want to remind everybody your top sportsbook comparison site, betting.net, offers extensive reviews on the best sportsbooks out there. Make sure you check them out. Also, if you want more talk or hear more talk about the Bengals and Bills, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we will have the Bengals weekly show with myself, Ty Robbins, former Cincinnati Bengal linebacker Joe Kelly, and I believe we will have the infamous Bengal Jim on, which you see everywhere whenever the Bengals play. But we're going to go ahead. Do you want to say anything before we wrap it up? You want to tell everybody where you and your where your Twitter handle is?
Yes. So you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram. It's at DB Talking Sports.
Douchebags Talking Sports. Who would ever call it DB? Because you know it's douchebag to anybody with half a brain.
It's perfect.
Yes, it is. I freaking agree.
I love it.
You and Bobby couldn't be more perfectly named than douchebags.
It's
You can follow me at Grueling Truth. Make sure you check out all our written previews before games. Maybe we get Dan to write some so he can go to the Super Bowl and cover it next year because he blew that this year because he didn't do it. But we're going to go ahead, wrap it up. Remember the Bengals Weekly Show tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. But for Dan Kornhauser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.